All right, so next up we have Zeming Yu, who is an actuarial manager at Covermore Travel Insurance, and he will be talking more about security token offerings.
Thanks, Bonnie. So before I start, just want a bit of disclaimer. So I'm not a lawyer, not giving any legal or financial advice. So this is just pure personal research. And also, I've sent the material to stocheck.com to review, so I'm very grateful to them. But all the errors and omissions are my own. So just to give you some idea of why I got into security token space. So basically, I'm an actuary. So I studied to be a qualified actuary at the Actuaries Institute in Australia. I'm also a data scientist. So I'm very interested in using machine learning or data analytics tools to solve business problems. So I work for Covermore Travel Insurance. And at the beginning of last year, I got into blockchain space through attending this Bulky Puba workshop, which is held here in Sydney once or twice a week. Actually, Bulky happens to be an actuary as well, so just a nice coincidence. And that got me into developing some smart contracts. So I actually proposed the ERC 1201 token standard. This standard tokenizes the rental rights. So with all that background, it prepared me well to look into the security token space, because I got both the financial industry background and also the blockchain knowledge. So let's start with this question. What are security tokens? So fundamentally, security tokens, they are still securities. So token may be its form, but they're still the same security that we're used to. So, by the way, this talk is focusing on the US jurisdiction. Obviously, every jurisdiction has its own definition of securities. But because US is still the dominant jurisdiction, I'm going to focus on US. So let's go back to 1946. There's a guy called Mr. Howey, and he owns a bit of orange grove. And he has no way to make some money. So he was saying, I need money to make money. How do I get some money? How about I go and sell these orange plots to people? I'll still look after the oranges. I'll pick the oranges. I'll juice them. And you just give me the money. And at the end of the year, I'll give you the profit. So SEC comes along and said, that's a security. And Mr. Howey said, no, it's just plots of oranges. So this case actually went all the way to the Supreme Court of the US. And the outcome of that is that the US now has a very clean definition of securities. So this leads us to the Howey test. So there are 4 criteria. So it needs to be an investment of money, and it needs to be in a common enterprise with an expectation of profit, and the profit needs to derive from the efforts of others. So in this case, the efforts of Mr. Howey. So the first application in the crypto space is actually the DAO report, which was released by the SEC after DAO hack. And basically, the DAO is considered to be a security because it's a venture capital based on crypto. And the profit that you can expect largely derived from the efforts of these startups. So that's why it's considered security. On the other hand, the SEC has very clearly stated that Bitcoin is not a security, mainly because there's really no common enterprise. So who is Satoshi Nakamoto, right? And who is really driving Bitcoin? There's no central body there. And also, I think recently they also indirectly confirmed that Ethereum is no longer a security. So when you first got started, when they have nothing, it might be a security because you're buying this token hoping to make money, and and nothing has been built yet. But now, just look at the community. You got so many developers around. It's all very decentralized. So Ethereum is okay as well. So assuming now you are a startup and you want to do an STO, there are a couple of ways. So the first way is a registered STO. So you go and go to the SEC and register as a public offering. You have to go through very onerous processes, submitting all sorts of documents. Or you could do what most other companies do an exempt STO. Basically, it's a private placement. So rather than try and sell to mom and dad who may or may not have knowledge about investment, you actually sell to sophisticated or accredited investors. So these are basically people with lots of money, so millionaires. The regulator is actually not, they're doing a lazy job in terms of verifying who is sophisticated or not, because you may have money and you still have no clue, right? But for simplicity, they just go, okay, we'll just stick with the millionaire test. Now, there are a few different regulations under this pass. So you got Reg D, Reg S, Reg A+, and Reg CF. So Reg D is probably one of the best known category. So there are actually two subcategories. You got 506B and 506C. So 506B was the old Reg D before the Obama jobs. The Jobs Act was approved by the Obama administration. It doesn't allow you to go out and solicit to the general public. So you can't really come on stage like here and you say, hey, I've got a STO. You can't do that. But with Reg D 506C, you can do that. The only catch is that you have to approve every individual and verify that they are accredited. For both categories, you can raise unlimited amount of money. So that's a real plus. And then you also got the Reg S. So with Reg S, it's tailoring to investors from outside the US. Now with both Reg D and Reg S, there's a lockdown period of 1 year. With Reg D, you can't really sell until a year later. With Reg S, you can't sell back to the US within 1 year. Now, there's also something very interesting called Reg A+. Now, this is more similar to the ICO space, where you're selling to mom and dad. And you can only raise $50 million a year, but that should be more than enough for most startups. But the issue is that the regulator hasn't really approved any Reg A+ so far. There are quite a few attempts. I think just yesterday there was a project called Blockstack. They just registered a Reg A+ of $50 million with SEC. So it will be interesting to see if they can be the first Reg A+ STO. And finally, you got the crowdfunding route, which you can raise $1 million. But you got a little bit more onerous reporting requirements. Now, what are the benefits of STO? So first, you got 24/7 markets. Now, we may think that that's normal. Crypto never sleeps. But if you look at the traditional securities market, you look at ASX. You got 9 to 4 trading Monday to Friday. This is a huge improvement. And you also have rapid settlement. So, we're talking about T+2. So you execute a trade, and 2 days later it gets settled. And in the middle, it's just sitting there. Whereas because now we're using blockchain, the execution happens at the same time of settlement. You got automated compliance. So you could bake all your compliance rules into the smart contract. So for example, you're not allowed to sell within 1 year. So you can actually write into the smart contract. And actually makes the life of a regulator much easier because it's actually written in the code. And you got fractional ownership as well. There's a huge advantage for illiquid assets like real estate, art, currently, for example, if you want to buy the Mona Lisa painting, who can buy that, right? Who's got billions of dollars? But imagine if you can tokenize some aspects of it, then we can all own a part of it. And finally, innovation. So the ICO stage has shown that there's a huge benefit in network effects. So by distributing tokens to people, they start to use it and generate more usage and therefore more popularity. Now with the security token space, you can do the same by giving special perks to security token holders. For example, a sports club might be able to use that to engage their fans. Now there's a few different types of tokens, security tokens. So you can tokenize equity, debt, assets, derivatives, even insurance risk tokens maybe. You can also do revenue share, which is quite common. Now, imagine you're a startup, so you need to engage a lot of providers. So this is the security token ecosystem. You will be surprised to see, there's actually a lot of players here. So first, you would engage some lawyers, like Bonnie, and then you go and talk to an issuance platform where they can write you some smart contracts in consultation with the lawyers to make sure all the compliance rules are baked in. And then you go to talk to a broker-dealer who will be able to source some investors for you. And if you're lucky, you raise enough money, you go and list your token on an exchange. And then you engage some compliance provider as well to make sure all the KYC and AML verification are done properly. And you also need custody because no institutional investors can invest without a proven custody solution. And we know that a big custody provider like Fidelity got into this space, and it's really positive. Now, there's some blockchain considerations as well. So first, would you do public-private blockchain? We may be thinking, public is the best, right? But actually, some people have other thoughts. Private blockchain may be able to get you there faster because it's easier for the regulator to control everything. And then there's also Ethereum or other blockchains. Ethereum is still the dominant blockchain, but there are other blockchains trying to catch up. And you got ERC20 or the new security token standards. 20 is easy, and you already have a big network, like Dharma for lending. You got DYDX for derivatives. You already got that ecosystem built, but the newer smart contracts try to bake in all the dividend, governance, voting, all that stuff. And then finally, just want to say technology is not the biggest hurdle. Compliance is. So we think compliance probably is 80% of the work. So let's just go through two case studies. First one is T0. It's a subsidiary of Overstock.com. The owner is Patrick Byrne. He's been a long-time Bitcoin advocate. And they are trying to launch a security token exchange, or ATS, so alternative trading system. They're doing a Reg D and a Reg S, so it tailors both domestic US investors and overseas investors. And they're doing a 10% revenue share. The token has been issued already as a ERC20 token on Ethereum. They raised $134 million by August last year, and the platform went live in January. They're currently only trading their own token, but I think in August they're expecting to open it up to trading other tokens or onboarding undercredited investors. And the second case study is real estate. So it's a project called Aspen Coin. They are backed by Aspen Digital, which is a single asset REIT, so real estate investment trust, which owns the St. Regis Aspen Resort, which is quite a famous property in the US. And it's a Reg D 506C offering, and the token has been issued as ERC20, and they raised 18 million by October 18. So as you can see, this industry is still at its infancy. Lots of the groundwork is happening right now. with a few exchanges trying to raise money or trying to get over the compliance hurdle. Also, the institutions are very interested in this space. But we expect to see growth. All it takes is a one big company like Apple to tokenize its shares. Then you immediately go from about 200 billion market cap to over 1 trillion, right? Because Apple is worth over about 900 billion. So that's I think there's trillions of dollars of assets waiting to be tokenized. So yeah, if you're interested, add me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Zeming, for the shout out also. I just have actually 2 questions for you. I think you mentioned something quite interesting. You sort of talk about security tokens, and I think that security tokens exist on a spectrum. You go all the way from the very left, which is sort of traditional financial assets like a share, and you talked about Apple, and then you go all the way to, I guess, the Aspen coin that sort of fractionalizes real estate, and the idea behind that is you can unlock illiquid value, which sort of is more innovative. So what are you more interested in on that spectrum?
Yeah, I'm just interested in the whole space. I think a lot of it is just traditional, right? It's nothing new. The security law has been around for nearly 100 years. But there's also the new things, and we don't really know what's going to happen. I think there's an analogy about radio. And when TV was first invented, people were trying to put a radio program on TV. So they have no idea, you could do all sorts of, videos on TV. So I think, yeah, I'm also interested in these innovative approaches as well.
Okay, great. I think you also mentioned something it's just a passing comment. You sort of mentioned sort of private and public blockchain, and obviously it's the public blockchain that's better. But I sort of remember there's this one podcast that I heard Vitalik do, in which he said sort of the short term, definitely it's sort of more private blockchain, and in the long term, obviously the public blockchain. I think it was with Lorishan. So if he's around, I'd love to sort of also hear his comment, but that's really interesting. Thank you. Thanks so much, Zeming.
Thank you.